Hello PHP folks, we're going to take a look at chapter 11, Task List Manager. This is at the end of the chapter, showing the code. We're just going to go over it. This particular one only has two buttons, add task and delete task, and but I'm going to be using the one from the exercise 1 at the end of the chapter, which is similar. The add task works, the delete task works, and the other three are new, but they don't work. This program has a list of tasks, first of all, which contain in arrays, in an array, which we'll display right here. We'll be able to make a new task, and down below there will be a select list of the array from which we'll be able to have different options. Let's begin with index, where the program begins. First of all, we are trying to pass between these programs the array itself called task list, and if it is set, we can go ahead and get the post and put that array into task list. Otherwise, we can create a new array, as this chapter teaches how to do. Use the array object and assign that to a variable on the left, and now task list is an array. We can also hard code some values into this array using this syntax. The element data on the right of the equal sign, and empty square brackets on the left on the array, and this will in effect assign right chapter into task list 0. The next one will go into task list 1, and so forth. This is one way to add an element at the end of an array. We are creating an array for errors in case we're going to need it. And now there's a switch statement, as we have seen before, on a variable called action. And different cases, the first one add task, which works right now, and the other one delete task, which also works, and the other ones which will be added later in exercise 1. Modify tasks, save changes, cancel changes, promote tasks, and sort tasks. But as we are doing index, first of all, there is no action at this point, so the cases will fall through. And at the end we have this include task list PHP, which is the next part where the program will go. So let's go to that, to task list.php, and it begins as all the other ones. Here's an H1 with task list manager, which we can see right here in H1. PHP if count, which is a function that we covered in this chapter, to return a number of elements in an array of errors. If that's greater than 0, then of course we're going to do an H2 title errors, and we're going to use a for each loop going through the array errors one at a time, and we're going to PHP echo error and PHP and for each, and of course we use the colon syntax, allowing us to write whatever HTML we want in between these two commands. Part 2, the tasks. So here it is, H2 tasks, looking like this. And now we're going to simply list the tasks, starting with a number 1, a period, a space, and the name of the task, and so forth. So first we have an if statement here, and if the count of the task list is equal to 0, which is unlikely since we've just put 3 items into it, but you always have to be prepared for the worst. Colon once again, and there are no tasks in this table. PHP else colon as well, UL, in order to indent this command, this list. For each task list as, now this is also new for us. ID, which is simply the 0, 1, 2 IDs of the array, arrow task, which is the content of that particular element. We're going to echo ID, and since we want 1, 2, 3 and not 0, 1, 2, we go ahead and add a 1 to the ID starting with 0. Concatenate a period and a space, concatenate the task itself, and that's it. And for each, and now notice that this is a end if, though we are really ending an else at this point. This is the way PHP handles that. Okay, so far so good. Then we're going to add form, which is the next part this page is going to display. The word task followed by an input text box. So now this is a form and one button. So let's see how it's going to do that. Right away it starts the form, and the period is simply going to call the same program, tasklist.php. Methodical posts. We have a for each, task list as task, and that's all we're doing because we're simply forwarding the array as it is now populated, and we're going to use the type hidden for that. And as you've learned, we're going to be using as a name an array, task list with the blank square brackets. Value is going to be echoing task, and a good thing to do right now would be to look at the code itself. And yes, indeed, the action is a period, the method post, input type is hidden, and the name is, and it shows up exactly like that as an array, and the values are simply what they are here. And the input type text is going to have the name new task, and notice that we'll also want to have the name and the ID to have the same name, just to accommodate all browsers. So that's what the code will create. Here's the label task, input type text, name, new task, ID, new task. Label is blank, just so we can line up the button add task with everything else. And here it is, type, submit, name, action, value, add task. Now the page goes to part 4, which is modify, promote, delete, form, etc. If count of task list is greater than 0. Again, we want to make sure that there is something in this list, and the task to modify is empty, and we have not seen this one yet. But when we are asking to modify, we do not want to follow this code, because this will show us modify and promote and so forth, which we don't want. In case we're ready to modify a task, we want to skip to the next one, and this is the logic which will make that possible. So as long as this is empty, then we can go ahead and make the screen look exactly the way it is here. So H2 select task, as we can see right here. The action, once again, this is a form, and let's refresh our memory on this. We're going to have a select list here under this format with all the buttons below. So the action is going to, of course, call the same program. We have a for each loop, task list, just tasks, same thing as before. We're going to forward the content of this array in input type hidden, and again we have the name task list. The value is going to be task, just like the other ones. And for each, and now we have the task which is showing up right here. Select name of this very important select list is going to be called task ID, and simply that is the case because only one of these will be chosen, whether we choose this one or this one. The point is one will return and it will be able to access it via that name, task ID. For each so this is the select, by the way. This is begins the select form type. For each task list as, and we're going to use the ID this time, and the task and the value, the index and the value. Option value PHP echo ID. So that's what we want. We want the index of the array as our value, and what will show up in the list is the task itself. And we close the option, and that's going to create a loop, and we can take a look at that. The final product, view select source, and here we go. Select name, task ID, option value 0, 1, 2, and here are the tasks themselves. Now the select form is done. The label is blank. Now to start with the three buttons, we have submit action, modify task, promote task, delete task, and all of these will be done later. Let's take a look at the two actions, back in index, that is, which now work, the add task and delete task. And in case of add task, we're going to grab the content of new task and put it into a variable called new task. If empty, of course, the new task gonna be empty into the array. Else, we're going to use the push function, which uses the name of the array in the first argument, and the element that we want to push at the end of the array is the second argument. New task is now part of the new array, and we break and include task list and display the page once again with the new item. And in case of delete task, this time we of course grab the ID of the one we want to delete, and we use the function unset, and we produce the task index, which we have just populated right here. This is the index of the element we want to delete, and here's the array with this index, and we use the unset, and it deletes it, but leaves it undefined. Therefore, we now have to use the array values command we learned in the chapter of the stack list, and that will reposition all the elements and reindex it into a new list, and now star list contains a fresh array. That's it for this program. The next video will go over the code for these other cases. Thank you very much.